Arrival at Galactic University. Zix couldn't contain his excitement as his transport pod docked at Galactic University's orbital campus. The young Xylothian had dreamed of this day for years, working tirelessly to earn a coveted spot at the most prestigious xenobiology program in the known universe. As he disembarked, Zix took a moment to appreciate the magnificent view. The sprawling campus hung in space like a glittering jewel, a testament to the incredible diversity of life that called this part of the galaxy home. Students from countless worlds hurried to and fro, their exotic forms a dazzling array of colors, shapes, and sizes. Zix himself hailed from a peaceful, temperate world, where his people had long ago achieved a harmonious balance with their environment. Conflict was virtually unknown to the Xylothians, and the very concept of violence was difficult for them to grasp. As such, Zix had always been fascinated by the myriad ways in which life adapted to survive and thrive in the universe's harshest corners. Now, as he stepped into the grand atrium of the xenobiology department, Zix felt a thrill of anticipation. Here, he would have the opportunity to study alongside some of the brightest minds from across the cosmos. And if the rumors were true, this year's class would include a particularly intriguing specimen, the first human student ever to attend Galactic University. Zix had heard stories about humans, of course. The bipedal primates were relative newcomers to the galactic stage, having only recently achieved interstellar travel. From what little was known about their homeworld, it seemed a rather unremarkable place, a small rocky planet orbiting an average yellow star. The humans themselves were said to be a curious blend of contradictions, capable of both great compassion and terrible destruction. As he made his way to his dormitory, Zix couldn't help but wonder what the human would be like. Would they be as strange and unpredictable as the stories suggested? Or would they prove to be just another fascinating example of the universe's endless variety? Only time would tell, but Zix had a feeling that this would be a year unlike any other. The mysterious human, Jace Armstrong, stood out like a sore thumb among the crowds of alien students. At first glance, the human appeared rather unremarkable, a tall, lanky figure with pale skin and short, dark hair. But there was something about the way he carried himself, a coiled intensity that seemed to radiate from his every movement, which set him apart from his classmates. From the moment he arrived on campus, Jace had been the talk of the university. Rumors flew about the mysterious human and his strange ways. Some claimed that he possessed unnatural strength and speed, while others whispered that he had a secret mission from his homeworld's leaders. Zix first met Jace in their advanced xenocology seminar. As the only two bipedal students in the class, they were naturally paired together for a project studying the adaptation strategies of various species. At first, Zix found the human to be rather intimidating. Jace had a way of staring intently at whoever he was speaking to, his piercing blue eyes seeming to bore right through them. But as they began to work together, Zix discovered that Jace was actually quite friendly and eager to learn about his new classmates. The human peppered Zix with questions about Xylothian culture and biology, displaying an insatiable curiosity about the wider galaxy. Yet there were also times when Jace would make cryptic comments that left Zix feeling unsettled. Once, while discussing the challenges of surviving in extreme environments, Jace chuckled and said, "You don't know the half of it. Back on Earth, we deal with conditions that would make most species' nightmares look like a walk in the park." Zix wasn't sure what to make of such statements. He had studied Earth in his courses, and while it certainly had its share of harsh climates and dangerous predators, it didn't seem particularly extreme compared to some of the death worlds he had read about. But Jace's words stuck with him, and Zix began to pay closer attention to the strange incidents that seemed to follow the human wherever he went. Like the time Jace accidentally crushed a metal datapad in his bare hands, or when he casually strolled through a malfunctioning airlock without a spacesuit. Each incident on its own could be explained away, but taken together, they painted a picture of a being with capabilities far beyond those of the average galactic citizen. Zix couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Jace than met the eye, and he became determined to unravel the mystery of the enigmatic human. The Xenobiology Project. As the semester wore on, Zix and his classmates found themselves increasingly preoccupied with a major assignment for their comparative planetary environments course. Each student was tasked with profiling an alien species' homeworld and the unique adaptations that allowed them to thrive there. Zix threw himself into his research, fascinated by the incredible variety of environments that had given rise to sentient life. From the ammonia-breathing frostlands of an ice moon to the silicon-based quartzians that swam in seas of molten metal, each species had evolved specialized traits perfectly suited to their native habitats. When it came time for the class presentations, Zix was eager to see what his classmates had uncovered. But nothing could have prepared him for Jace's presentation on Earth and the human species. The human strode to the front of the lecture hall, a grim expression on his face. Earth, he began, is a death world, a planet that seems almost tailor-made to kill anything that sets foot on it. A hushed murmur rippled through the assembled students. Jace proceeded to paint a chilling picture of a world beset by constant natural disasters, from massive superstorms and devastating earthquakes to volcanic eruptions and tsunamis. He described a planet with a thin, fragile atmosphere that offered little protection from the sun's harsh radiation and a dizzying array of viruses, bacteria, and toxins that could kill in a matter of hours. But it was Jace's accounts of the many predators that stalked Earth's jungles, oceans, and skies that truly horrified his audience. Giant reptiles with teeth the size of daggers, venomous insects that could paralyze with a single sting, mammals that could crush bone with their powerful jaws. It seemed that every corner of the planet harbored some new nightmare. Throughout it all, Jace emphasized the incredible resilience and adaptability of the human species. He spoke of how his ancestors had not only survived, but thrived in the face of constant mortal peril, how they had used their ingenuity and tenacity to bend the hostile environment to their will, building great cities and civilizations despite the dangers that lurked at every turn. As Jace concluded his presentation, a stunned silence fell over the lecture hall. Zix and his fellow students exchanged uneasy glances, their perceptions of the human and his homeworld completely upended. Some looked at Jace with newfound respect, marveling at the strength and determination of a species that could flourish on such a lethal world. Others shrank away in fear, wondering what sort of monsters could be forged in such a crucible of death and destruction. In the days that followed, Jace's presentation was all anyone could talk about. Wild rumors began to circulate, with some speculating that humans possessed secret abilities that made them impervious to the many dangers of their homeworld. Others whispered that Earth was some sort of prison planet, a dumping ground for the galaxy's most dangerous criminals and monstrous experiments. Zix didn't know what to believe, but he knew one thing for certain. He needed to learn more about the enigmatic human and the secrets of his dark and deadly world. Jace's demonstration. As rumors about Jace's presentation continued to swirl, the human grew increasingly frustrated. He hadn't meant to frighten his classmates, only to give them a realistic understanding of the challenges humans faced on a daily basis. One day, after a particularly heated debate in their xenosociology seminar, Jace pulled Zix aside. "Look," he said, "I appreciate that my presentation was a lot to take in. But I'm not some sort of monster or superhuman. I'm just a regular guy from a tough neighborhood, so to speak." Zix nodded sympathetically, but couldn't help voicing his doubts. "It's just hard to believe that anyone could survive in the kind of environment you described," he said. "I mean, the extremes of temperature, the toxic atmosphere, the constant threat of death and dismemberment." Jace sighed. "I get it. It sounds crazy when you put it all together like that. But the thing is, humans are adaptable. We've had to be, to make it this far. And we've developed a lot of technology and techniques to help us along the way." Seeing the skepticism on Zix's face, Jace made a sudden decision. "Tell you what," he said. "Why don't I give you and some of the others a little demonstration? Nothing fancy, just a few practical examples of how humans deal with extreme conditions." Zix was intrigued and quickly rounded up a group of his friends to take Jace up on his offer. The human led them to a remote corner of the campus, where a series of environmental simulators had been set up for training purposes. "Okay," Jace said, rubbing his hands together. "Let's start with something simple. Temperature extremes." He stepped into a large, transparent chamber and sealed the door behind him. Zix and the others watched in amazement as the chamber's interior rapidly cooled, a thick frost forming on the walls and floor. Minutes ticked by, and still Jace showed no signs of discomfort. He paced back and forth, his breath misting in the frigid air, seemingly oblivious to the sub-zero temperatures. Finally, after a full half-hour had elapsed, he emerged from the chamber, grinning from ear to ear. "Not bad, huh?" he said, brushing a layer of ice crystals from his hair. "Back on Earth, we call that a mild winter day." Next, Jace demonstrated his resistance to extreme heat, pressure, and even radiation. Each time, he emerged unscathed, leaving his audience slack-jawed with amazement. But it was his final display that truly left them speechless. Jace led the group to a small, reinforced enclosure, gesturing for them to wait outside. Moments later, a deafening roar erupted from within, followed by a series of snarls, screeches, and bone-crunching sounds. Zix and his friends exchanged terrified glances, certain that the human had finally met his match. But when the door to the enclosure swung open, Jace emerged unharmed, a fierce grin on his face. Behind him, the shattered remains of a dozen combat drones lay scattered across the floor, their metal limbs twisted and torn. "Like I said," Jace panted, wiping the smear of synthetic blood from his cheek. "On Earth, you learn to fight for survival pretty early on. It's not pretty, but it gets the job done." As word of Jace's incredible feats spread across the campus, the rumors and speculation reached a fever pitch. Some whispered that the human was a genetically engineered super soldier, bred for war and destruction. Others claimed that he was a mutant, the product of generations of exposure to Earth's harsh conditions. But for Zix and those who had seen Jace's demonstration firsthand, one thing was clear: humans were not to be underestimated. And Earth was a world that demanded respect and fear in equal measure. The Galactic Alert. News of Jace's presentation and subsequent demonstration soon reached the highest echelons of galactic society. Planetary leaders and intelligence agencies scrambled to make sense of the revelations about Earth and its inhabitants, struggling to reconcile the image of a primitive backwater world with the accounts of a planet that seemed engineered to breed the ultimate survivors. Some dismissed Jace's claims as exaggeration or outright fabrication, convinced that no sentient species could possibly evolve on a world so inimical to life. They pointed to the humans' relatively primitive technology and lack of advanced abilities as proof that Earth could not be as deadly as the rumors suggested. But others saw in Jace's words and deeds a chilling confirmation of their deepest fears. For years, there had been whispers of a race of beings from beyond the galactic rim, creatures of unimaginable power and savagery that threatened the very fabric of civilization. Could the humans be the vanguard of this long-prophesied invasion? As panic began to spread, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss the Earth situation. Representatives from dozens of worlds argued and debated late into the night, torn between their desire for more information and their fear of provoking a confrontation with the mysterious humans. In the end, a compromise was reached. Earth would be placed on the Galactic Threat Watch List, and a team of elite operatives would be dispatched to gather intelligence on the planet and its inhabitants. If the humans proved to be a danger to galactic peace and stability, the Council would take whatever steps necessary to neutralize the threat. Back on campus, Jace and Zix watched the unfolding drama with growing unease. Jace had never meant to cause such a commotion, and now he feared that his actions had put his entire species at risk. Zix, for his part, couldn't help but feel a sense of betrayal. He had thought Jace was his friend, but now he wondered if the human had been using him all along, manipulating him and his classmates for some sinister purpose. As tensions continued to mount, the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of not just Earth and its people, but the entire galaxy itself. And at the center of it all, two unlikely allies, a human and a Zalothian, would find themselves caught in a web of secrets, lies, and hidden agendas that threatened to unravel everything they thought they knew about themselves and their place in the universe. The real story. Zix paced nervously outside Jace's dormitory, his mind racing with questions and doubts. He had come to confront the human, to demand answers about his true motives and the secrets he had been keeping. But now, standing on the brink of the truth, he found himself hesitating, afraid of what he might learn. Taking a deep breath, Zix stepped forward and knocked on the door. A moment later, it slid open to reveal Jace, his face haggard and his eyes bloodshot. "Zix," he said, his voice hoarse, "I figured you'd come eventually. Come on in." The two sat in silence for a long moment, each waiting for the other to speak. Finally, Zix could take it no longer. "Why?" he blurted out. "Why did you do it, Jace? Why did you come here and turn everything upside down?" Jace sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I never meant for any of this to happen," he said. "I just wanted to share the truth about my homeworld, about the challenges we face every day just to stay alive. I thought if people understood that, maybe they'd see us differently. Maybe they'd realize that we're not a threat, just survivors trying to find our way in the universe." Zix shook his head. "But the things you said, the things you did, it scared people, Jace. It made them think you were some kind of monster." Jace chuckled bitterly. "I know, and I'm sorry for that. But the thing is, Zix, humans aren't superhuman. We're not invincible or indestructible. We're just adaptable. We've had to be, living on a world that's constantly trying to kill us." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Earth isn't some kind of hellscape or prison planet. It's our home, and it's made us who we are. It's forged us in the fires of adversity, taught us to be strong, to be resourceful, to never give up no matter how bad things get. And that's what I wanted to show people. That's what I wanted them to understand." Zix was silent for a long moment, trying to process what he had heard. Slowly, the pieces began to fall into place. Jace's cryptic comments, his incredible feats of endurance and strength, the way he seemed to thrive in the face of danger. "So what now?" Zix asked finally. "The whole galaxy is in an uproar. They think you're the vanguard of some kind of invasion force." Jace shook his head. "That's the last thing we want. Humans aren't conquerors or destroyers. We're explorers, dreamers, builders. All we want is to find our place among the stars, to learn from other species and share what we know." He looked up at Zix, his eyes pleading. "That's why I need your help, Zix. You're one of the only ones who understands, who's seen the real me. If we can make people see that humans aren't a threat, that we're just like them in so many ways, maybe we can find a way to coexist in peace." Zix felt a sudden rush of emotions: fear, hope, determination. He knew that Jace was right, that the fate of both their species hung in the balance. And in that moment, he made a decision that would change the course of history. "I'll do it," he said, his voice firm. "I'll be your ambassador, Jace. I'll help you show the galaxy the truth about humans and Earth." In the weeks and months that followed, Zix and Jace worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between their two worlds. They spoke to leaders and diplomats, scientists and scholars, sharing their story and their vision of a future where humans and aliens could live and work side by side. It wasn't easy. There were many who still feared and distrusted the humans, who saw them as a threat to be contained or destroyed. But slowly, steadily, the tide began to turn. More and more people came to see the humans as Zix and Jace did, not as monsters or conquerors, but as a species with its own unique strengths and challenges, its own hopes and dreams. And as the galaxy watched, a new era of cooperation and understanding began to dawn. Humans and aliens from all corners of the cosmos came together, sharing their knowledge and their cultures, working to build a better future for all. For Zix and Jace, it was a bittersweet victory. They had risked everything to make this moment possible. Their reputations, their friendships, even their lives. But as they stood together on the steps of the Galactic Council, watching as a human and as a Lothian shook hands in a gesture of peace and goodwill, they knew that it had all been worth it. Earth and its people had finally taken their place among the stars, not as conquerors or destroyers, but as partners and friends. And though the road ahead would be long and difficult, Zix and Jace knew that they would face it together, united by the bond of understanding and respect that had brought them to this moment. As they looked out at the sea of faces before them, human and alien, friend and stranger, they felt a sense of hope and possibility that they had never known before. And they knew that, whatever challenges lay ahead, they would meet them head-on, with the strength and determination that had brought them this far. For they were pioneers, explorers, dreamers, the first of a new generation that would shape the future of the galaxy. And though their journey was just beginning, they knew that it would be a story for the ages, a story of courage, compassion, and the unbreakable spirit of those who dared to reach for the stars.